Deb asks a timely question. Should pro-choice Catholics be denied communion? Great question, Deb. Yeah, so the rule about denying communion is that you publicly deny communion to someone when it would cause scandal. So if a priest knows about a hidden sin, or something that isn't really, it's not a publicly known thing, he can't deny the person communion. That's really the responsibility of the person within their own conscience to have formed their conscience well, to know that if they are in the state of sin and they have not gone to confession, they have not repented, that they need to not present themselves for communion. The priest's role of denying communion, or the minister's role of denying communion, is if this is a public thing. And the priest or the minister giving them communion would be a statement of saying, in the public's eye, you are in a state in which you can receive communion. So in regard to pro-choice Catholics being denied communion, what has to happen is that they have to be publicly pro-choice. And that has to be shown in a concrete, kind of like a public manner, not just by them saying, oh, I support, this pro-choice candidate, or I think women should have a choice, something like that. If they say something like that, that's right on that edge, because they haven't quite done anything concrete to support those things, aside from words. But words are cheap, and words can be taken back very easily. And so it needs to be something that is, in a sense, it's solid. So if somebody publicly votes for a pro-choice law or something like that, which in the United States, at least, our voting is private. Nobody knows who voted for what. And so in regard to how someone has voted, that's very difficult to say, yeah, no, they're a pro-choice Catholic, therefore they cannot receive communion. In regard to our politicians, how politicians vote, that is public records. And so if a politician has publicly voted for pro-life legislation, or for pro-choice legislation, that is sufficient public knowledge that they have done something that supports, they have participated in an abortion even in an indirect way, by simply opening the door to easier or more abortions. And so in that situation, a politician, until they publicly renounce their past choices and go to confession, they cannot receive communion. And really, the minister, if they are aware of that, should not give them communion. There is the situation where with some politicians and with some ministers, they just don't know what this politician's voting record is, or they don't even know that the person is a politician. When you're distributing communion, you see a person for approximately 3 seconds. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to recognize that's who this is. This is their voting record. I cannot give them communion. And so just because somebody gives them communion doesn't mean that they're, a horrible person and they themselves have actually sinned. It should be the politicians who actually stop themselves from approaching communion. But that's not the case everywhere. And so one thing that I do want to comment on just after this is, abortion itself in the situation is, it's complex to talk about whether or not a particular person who procured an abortion actually committed a sin. It's always evil. That's without a doubt. It's an evil action to procure an abortion, period, no matter what. And and it has evil effects, not only in the child's life, but also in within the psychology of the body, all of the things within the mother, and really anybody else who participated in the abortion. But there are plenty of women out there who, their entire life have just been told, oh, no, it's removing tissue, or no, this is a perfectly fine thing. This is a good thing. You're being a responsible parent. You're not fit to be a parent right now, and this is your only option. And obviously, we know all of those things are not true. We know that adoption is an option. We know that this is not just a piece of tissue. This is a human being made in the image and likeness of God. And so we know that. But remember, in order to commit a mortal sin, you have to have full knowledge and full consent, and then you have to do the action. And I do think that in Western society today, there are plenty of people, because not all of society, but a lot of the sources of morality out there, law, people's parents, people's teachers, things of that sort, have told them that abortion is okay, and so they aren't really aware that it's evil, and they really sometimes aren't even aware what actually goes on in an abortion, so that they don't have that full knowledge. And then oftentimes these women are kind of manipulated and lied to and told that their lives are going to be absolutely horrible if they go through with this pregnancy, and that adoption is not a real option. And so they aren't really fully free either, so they can't have full consent. And so I think it's fair to say that there are plenty of women out there who have had abortions, who haven't actually committed a mortal sin. And so we as Catholics, what we need to do is we need to really fight to make sure that the truth is out there, that these women know that they do have options. We need to be the ones that actually step up and say, hey, if you want to adopt that child, I'll walk with you through this whole thing, or put the child up for adoption. I'll walk with you through the whole thing, and I'll make sure that this child finds a good home. We need to support the organizations that are doing things like that. And, we need to get out there and let these young women know, and even the fathers and the families, who oftentimes are all kind of part of this decision, let all of them know what's really going on in abortion, and that there are good options out there. So hopefully that answers your question, Deb. It's slightly complicated when it comes to politicians who have actually voted. The answer is quite simply yes, they should be denied communion. But that's the responsibility of the individual minister. In regard to people who perhaps do not have a really public way to verify that they're pro-choice or pro-life, and whether or not they've actually done anything pro-choice, that is more a matter of the person's own conscience. And that doesn't mean that therefore they can do whatever they want. It means that every single one of us, including them, need to form our consciences well and make sure that we really understand what it is that we're doing, the consequences of our own actions, and the things that we support or don't support.